When we're talking about planning and strategy, the first one is there has to be that conversation about the acceptable risk thresholds. And you shouldn't assume that for every single maybe vendor or for every single vertical within which that vendor's operating, that those risk thresholds are going to be the same. That is one that I spend lots of times working with clients on is how are we going to understand this? And even like with question at the beginning, who is going to be responsible for helping us determine acceptable?
Yeah, and for me, the focus, the identify the categories of vendors and your tiering logic for how you're going to decide what is, a high risk, medium risk. You can use red, yellow, green. You can use whatever tiering process or flavors you like, but you should have some ability to say these vendors are the most mission critical. These vendors will go through the highest level of review and diligence. And these are other vendors that can have a lighter touch because they are just not touching anything that is critically important or super sensitive. And they are using tools and technologies that are well understood and well vetted. And a couple of spots in between typically, right? So there's not a one size fits all, but the closer you can get to like four sizes fit most, the faster you can move and the more consistently you can address these things, which I think is to Janelyn's point, systematizing things is your best friend, especially now that we know most folks are dealing with hundreds of vendors. So
100.
that's kind of your only path forward.
Yep. And we have this intentionally on the planning and strategy because really this needs to be before you get to the starting line. This is before you hit the RFP process or before you get the referral from an employee raising their hand and saying, we really need to put this in there, is the idea that this is going to be mapped out so that it does become plug and play and we can balance that speed with being actually responsible and playing our role, which is not to block innovation. It's to make sure that innovation doesn't bring down the organization in a lot of ways. And this is also when we are in the planning phase, this is an opportunity for privacy teams to get out of their comfort zone a little bit and start to really befriend the information security team, the IT team, if that team wears multiple hats, and also to start the conversation with the business. This has to be a dialogue between basically the guardians of the organization and the folks that are innovating and growing and enhancing the organization. And so have those conversations and don't be afraid to have them early because again, if we are able to start to filter things out before it even gets to that point, it's going to make the entire process that much faster. So maybe
I
right? It's the type of thing where we will not look at any vendor. This is a high risk enough process. No vendors that don't have ISO 27001 or other ISO AI focused certs are going to be admissible.
Yeah, I love that phrasing of the guardians of the organization because it will vary depending on what your organization is. Sometimes that's infosec and privacy. As you mentioned, sometimes it's IT. We have a separate compliance and risk team. I sit on the digital product legal team currently. So it might be a different mix of folks, but there is a group of folks that we are the ones who stress about about all of the things that could go wrong. That is our mandate. And so the faster you can make friends with each other and the earlier you can get involved in these conversations, generally the better. You can start to, flag the things that are no go before people get too far down that road or too excited about them. You can start to like set up some basic guardrails of like, we will not slow you down so long as you stay within this space. Business loves to hear that you're not going to slow them down. So if you can do that in a way that still protects the business in the way that the guardians of the organization should, then I think you're off to a really good start.